This is the Apple Watch Series 5. No wait, this is the Apple Watch Series 4. This is the Apple Watch Series 5. Apple's latest smartwatch hit stores on Friday, and at least at a glance, it looks exactly the same as last year's model. For me at least, the unboxing basically meant taking one watch off my wrist and replacing it with something virtually identical. For those of you who bought the Series 4 and are watching this review mainly to make sure you're not being one-upped, you can go ahead and breathe a sigh of relief. You're not missing much. But for those of you who are already thinking about getting your first Apple Watch, the sameness here might actually be good news. It means an already good smartwatch just got a tiny bit better. Like I said, the new watch is virtually identical. There is one visible difference though once you set up the device, and that's the always-on Retina display. Now when your wrist is lowered, you'll see the watch face just dimmer. In fairness, you may have seen this sort of feature on other watch brands like Samsung. The pitch here obviously is that you can glance at the time even when it's not convenient to raise your wrist. Let's say when you're in a meeting or you're in the middle of a bendy yoga pose, you know how that goes. Also, some folks just want a watch that always shows the time. Fair enough. To make this happen, Apple adopted a new screen technology, a low-temperature polysilicon and oxide display, or LTPO for short. What you need to know there is that it gets down to a very low refresh rate, which is critical, otherwise the battery would just drain before your workday is over. But it's not just components like an integrated circuit and ambient light sensor making the always-on display possible. Apple also audited each and every one of its watch faces, going one by one through all 34 of them to find ways it could save power when your hand is down. For instance, a white face might become black when your wrist is down, or an on-screen clock that counts the seconds will only update the time every minute in always-on mode. In the Workouts app, the timer that normally shows fractions of a second only shows whole seconds when that screen has been auto-dimmed. You get the idea. What's more, these modified always-on watch faces also show less information when your wrist is down. I really love that my Spotify and podcast players are straight up grayed out. Trust me, you really don't want to know what's on my Discover Weekly playlist, and no, I don't have time to explain what my dad wrote a porno is. But you should check it out. If you want to go further than that to protect your privacy, there's a setting in the Apple Watch iOS app where you can flip a toggle to hide sensitive complications. That includes everything from calendar appointments to heart rate data. Depending on your watch face of choice though, this may or may not seem necessary. For instance, my default face are my fitness rings, and frankly, I don't care who knows how many exercise minutes or stand hours I've gotten. And I actually prefer to see that info at a glance. It'd be great in my opinion if Apple could add more granular options in a future software update. Say a toggle for fitness stats, another for calendar appointments, and so on. For now, I recommend trying it both ways and seeing what suits you. You can do that in the Apple Watch app, though oddly not under privacy settings, but in the brightness settings. I should say too that you can disable the always-on display altogether. Hey, maybe you'd rather your screen quote-unquote blend in, well, to the extent that a computer screen strapped to your wrist can ever really blend in. But if you're concerned about battery life, let me say this. Apple rates the Series 5 at 18 hours of use, the same as last year's model. I'll admit it's hard for us to methodically test smartwatch battery life the way we do with smartphones or laptops, but for what it's worth, I can get a full workday, forget to charge my watch overnight, and still have juice left over the next day. If you're like me, having a spare charger in the office should be a failsafe. Continuing our tour of the device, you'll see the screen sizes are the same as before. That's 40mm and 44mm. The digital crown is still there, of course, and there's that rectangular button on the side, which you probably won't be using too often. In the Series 4, you could hold down this button on the cellular models to make emergency calls. Now, with the Series 5, you can do that while traveling internationally too, and again, that's provided it's an LTE model. Hopefully, you never have to use this feature, but it's nice to know it's there. As you can see, my review unit is made of aluminum, which is one of the reasons it looks identical to the Series 4. In both cases, the entry-level models have an aluminum finish, and they're offered in the same colors: silver, space gray, and gold. The stainless steel edition is also carried over from before. If you want people to know you have the 2019 model, you're gonna have to pay even more. There's a new titanium finish which starts at $799, and it's a lot lighter than stainless steel, and the finish is more matte, just less glossy. Apple also brought a ceramic edition back this year, and it comes in a gorgeous all-white finish, and it starts at $1299. Woof, that's a lot. Something tells me that a lot of you are gonna just go with the aluminum watch, which starts at $399, and call it a day. The last hardware feature is also a software feature. It's a built-in compass showing you what direction you're pointing in. There's even a standalone compass app that shows, you guessed it, a compass along with the incline, elevation, latitude, and longitude. I don't really need that here on the 9th floor of Engadget's office building, but I can definitely see it coming in handy if I were an avid hiker. If you're a city slicker like me, you can still get use out of the compass, either inside Apple's own Maps app or certain third-party apps like Yelp. In Yelp, pick a destination, select walking directions, and voila! You can see yourself on the map with confirmation you're going in the right direction. It's nice to be able to keep your phone in your pocket, especially if you're in a strange city and trying your hardest not to look like a tourist. Other than that, it's just a bunch of new software tricks, all of which, by the way, you can get through the watchOS 6 update. That's available for just about every Apple Watch ever made, except for the very first one that came out in 2015. For starters, there's now an app store on the watch itself, so you can browse and install from there without getting your phone involved. I'll admit, this isn't a feature I found myself using often during my testing, especially knowing that Apple Watch apps are kind of hit or miss in terms of quality. But hey, it's nice to have. Beyond that, there's a bunch of new health and fitness features on board, including menstrual cycle tracking for logging symptoms, predicting the start of your next period, and predicting a woman's fertile period, in case she's trying to get pregnant, or maybe if she's trying not to. There's also a hearing health feature that can tell if you've been exposed to dangerous decibel levels. And an activity trends view gives you a longer-term look at your fitness progress. Hey Siri, what song is this? Siri's also learned a few more tricks. It can identify songs you're hearing and show little web page previews on your wrist when you're getting answers to questions. Other additions, standalone apps for audiobooks, voice memos, and perhaps best of all, a calculator with a little tip button inside. You know you love it. Throughout, performance on the watch feels snappy but not noticeably faster than the Series 4. There's a new chip inside, S5 instead of S4, but again, the performance leap is immaterial compared to what it felt like upgrading from the Series 3 to the Series 4. Then there's all the stuff the Series 4 could already do last year. Think automatic workout detection, a built-in ECG test for potential heart arrhythmias, and fall detection in case you take a spill. Those were selling points then, and they're selling points now. And that seems like a fitting place to end this review. The Series 5 is the best smartwatch you can buy, but it also feels a lot like last year's best smartwatch, the Series 4. If you own last year's model, there is no reason to upgrade. But if you're part of the majority of people who Apple says are buying an Apple Watch for the first time, this is a very good, very safe time to get in on the action.